What's going on, guys? Cole here. So today we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at my AR setup, my current SBR setup, and then we're also going to be taking a look at my long barrel setup. The big takeaway from this video is going to be how to do more high quality builds that are cost effective so that you're not breaking the bank just to have high quality equipment. If we're going to put our life on the line with this equipment, we want to go quality over quantity, and that's what we're going to talk about. So stick around. Alright guys, so this is my current SBR setup. It's an 11.5 inch Geisley upper on an IWI lower. It is stamped and all the legal stuff, defund the ATF, but we're just going to go from the buttstock to the suppressor, and we're going to talk over everything that I have on here and the why behind it. And so when we're starting a build, there should be some kind of an intent, and maybe your intent is just general purpose all around battle rifle, right? And that's fine. There are things that you're going to want to buy to put on your weapon so that it can fulfill that intended purpose, right? So this, for me, is a dedicated CQB gun, right? So I wanted to go with a shorter barrel. Like, these considerations are what's going to come into play as you're trying to fulfill that intended purpose. You're going to start having a whole lot of different considerations when it comes to your barrel length, what optic you're using, are you using a riser or not? There's a lot of things that come into play, and so for this specific rifle, this build is supposed to be for CQB, right? Close quarters, room clearing, etc., etc. So my upper is an 11.5 inch Geisley. I want the 11.5 inch so that it's more maneuverable, right? And I want to have a can on it so that I'm not blowing my eardrums out, but running a can on a standard 16 inch upper is going to be not impossible, but a lot less maneuverable. So if I'm running a can especially, I want to have a shorter barrel. So 11.5 inch Geisley is the same barrel length as what the URGI is, and so you can't go wrong, right? Geisley is obviously one of the more high tier manufacturers out there, and this thing has been awesome, but that's the upper. The lower is an IWI, an Israeli Weapon Industries, and it came with my long barrel upper that I have over here that I'll show you here in just a little bit. But I had this lower and I had that upper, and it was a complete AR. And then when I acquired this shorter barrel and I got a tax stamp to SBR, my lower, I just have started to swap them back and forth, right? So that's why it's not the same. That's why it's not anything else. I bought an IWI complete, and I've just swapped the upper out for a shorter barrel. So starting from the buttstock, this is the new Magpul MOE DT or dual tension buttstock. Relatively new, hasn't been out on the market that much. However, I was running the original standard MOE buttstock, and I've ran this thing on and off for about a decade, and I never disliked it, but one thing I really didn't like about it was that it rattled. There'd be a little bit of play in it, it would shake, it'd make noise. And what I'll say about the new dual tension buttstock is that it does not rattle. It is solid. I also like that, as opposed to the older one that has a sharp point at the bottom, as you'll see here, the new DT stock has a flat bottom, and that's just so that you can actually have a more stable platform when shooting from a sandbag or whatever. That's the buttstock I'm running, and I really like this thing. We'll talk about the pistol grip. This pistol grip is a hot topic that's kind of hitting the market nowadays. This is a Kung Fu grip from Die Free Company. This thing is the best pistol grip on the market, and nobody can convince me otherwise. It is just about the most vertical profile that you can find. It also has this really nice groove for your middle finger to sit in. The texture's nice. it's just awesome. It's also incredibly inexpensive. It's like 20 bucks. And what I will say is get the plug. If you go on their website, you'll find that they have a plug option. It extends the pistol grip. If you have small hands, it's not a big deal. But if you're like me and you have pretty big hands, then you're going to want to get that plug, because without the plug, my hand would roll off the bottom of it. And I wasn't a big fan of it at that point. Once I threw the plug in here, it was like, this is the best, hands down. Don't even come at me. The charging handle, pretty standard option. It's a Radian Raptor charging handle. Also kind of goated in my opinion. I've used it for a long time as well. I used it all through my last deployment. I've had it on my own personal weapons for years. And it's like what I said with my plate carrier and my general purpose pouches. Spiritus pouches are so good, or like my S-Tac mag pouches, they're so good that I don't really have a desire to find something better, because it just does everything that I want it to do so well that it leaves no room for desire for something more. It's already that good. So Radian Raptor charging handle, in my opinion, you can't go wrong, and I'm not really looking for anything else. Moving up to my optics setup, I'm running an EOTech, I think it's the EXPS, with an EOTech G43. I am currently running this on an SC Irregulars OMM mount, or the Hercules mount, or whatever they call it. We are going to make a video about risers in the future, but just for your guys' situational awareness, this riser brings my optic center line up to 2.5 inches height over bore. And so for me, that gives me a very comfortable head placement when I present the weapon, to where I'm not dipping my head down to look for it, but it's also not so high like the GBRS Hydra or Lerna, for example, that it's completely restricting using that gun to a standing or kneeling position. I feel like this is just about as high as you can go, where you can still actually get a solid sight picture from the prone position. Once you go to the GBRS mounts at 2.91 inches, it's just too high. When you lay down in the prone, your face is not even going to be touching the buttstock at all, and I'm not a big fan of that. So this is really about as high as I would want to go for riser mounts. I'm using a red dot for fast sight acquisition. That's also a contributing factor in running a riser. If you're not running a riser, you need to just check them out. They are the move, they're the future. If you're not running one, I'm just going to assume that it's because you don't know, or you just haven't gotten around to buying one yet, but they're just the move. Now this is a dedicated CQB gun, so there's a lot of times that I don't run the magnifier, but I like having it on there just in case I am going to the range and I'm going to be shooting at 100 or 300 or whatever. I like having the magnification there as an option. But building out a dedicated CQB gun, you're going to want probably a red dot sight of some sort. I've just always been an EOTech guy, but you're probably not going to want to run a magnified optic like an LPVO, for example, just because being able to acquire a solid sight picture is not going to be as reliably fast as a red dot is. It's just not. Now you can train it and you can get really good at it, but a red dot is just going to be faster. You're not having to worry about scope shadow or any of that stuff. Your eye relief doesn't matter, as where with a magnified optic it does matter. So a red dot is just much more accessible for everybody to use, and it's just a faster option. So now moving on to my sling. So my sling, I'm running a Ferro Concept Slingster, and I have it mounted underneath the buttstock on this back plate here with a QD mount. And on the other end, I'm running a 100 Concepts sling mount. Not only the M-LOK sling mount here, but also the little 550 adapter piece that they came out with, just to try and mitigate some clanging around of your pieces. So if you're going to put this sling back on your weapon, if you have a hardware malfunction, like your piece breaks, or I've had QD mounts in the past that have gotten so gummed up or so rusted out that the button doesn't work. If you have any issues with this, it's just a little loop of 550 cords, so very easily replaceable, and it just clips in. So nice and simple there. The Ferro, the slingster itself, is just, in my opinion, the best sling on the market. I've used T-Rex arm slings, I've used Blue Force gear slings, Vickers slings, I've used Haley slings. When I tried the slingster for the first time, it was almost like magic. All of the other slings that I've tried, when the sling is actually loaded with the weight of the firearm, it can be hard to adjust the pull tab, right, for length or for tightness and adjustment of the weapon to the body. But the slingster is the only one that, no matter if it's loaded or not loaded, the pull tab just works. Like, I'll take my hands off and I'll just loosen the pull tab. It just works every time. Easy. And the pad is nice. I like having a pad on my slings, so the pad's nice, but it's really this piece right here that sold me. This thing just is so smooth and so easy, but it's not like it's ever randomly loosened itself on me. I've never had that issue, but I just love how easy to adjust it is, and so I'm not going to look for anything else because it works so well for me. Moving forward, my hand stop is also from the same company that makes the Kung Fu grip. Die Free Co. came out with this just a few months ago, which is the Tiger Claw, I believe it's called. It's the same kind of concept, just a small little hand stop just for your hand placement here, but it also has that groove in it, similar to the middle finger groove on the pistol grip. And so it's just a very comfortable purchase on the weapon, and I just dig it. Basically anything that Die Free Co. comes out with, I'm probably going to get one to at least check it out. But they knocked it out of the park with both of these products so far. So moving up to my controls, I have two Unity pressure pads. So one is just a pressure pad, and that is for my PEG-15. I used to have a laser on this gun. I plan on having one in the future, so I just left it on there. But it's just a pressure pad. The other one is a hot button. So there's a positive on-off click. You can also just lightly press in to illuminate your light. But if I wanted to leave it on to where it's not just in a pressure pad configuration, let's say, it does have the click so that I can turn it on and leave it on, and then positive on-off click to turn it back off. So that's my controls there. Moving forward, we have my Surefire Scout Pro dual fuel. So it can use different batteries. And this thing has, I want to say with the battery that comes with it from Surefire, it puts out 1500 lumens, but with any other batteries, I can't remember the size of the battery off the top of my head, it puts out, I want to say, 1000 or 1250. Regardless, it's incredibly bright, and it is mounted to the rail with a Kinetic Development Group QD M-LOK mount, so that I can just take it off and remount it very easily, just like that. And we'll get into why that's important here in a little bit. But I just wanted to at least give those guys a shout out as well. The product is awesome. And moving forward, finally, is my suppressor. It's a Yankee Hill Turbo T3. In my opinion, it's a very cost-effective entry-level suppressor that's not going to break the bank. This thing for $750, not including the unconstitutional tax stamp. $750, you're getting this can, and you're also getting a muzzle device. And so what I did was also bought another muzzle device to put on my long barrel upper so that I can swap my can back and forth. And so when you're setting up your rifle, if you're very new into this, there's a few different ways that you're going to want to size the rifle to yourself. It should be a tailored custom fit like a suit, right? So buttstock placement. A lot of guys run their buttstock super close in because they feel like it's cool to have this super small gun. I used to be the same way. I now go all the way out and I click it in just one because I do want to be close up. I do want to have good eye relief when I am running my EOTech magnifier. I want to have good eye relief, mitigate scope shadow and all that. But the big thing is when you're sizing your buttstock to yourself is putting the gun under your arm and putting your arm at a 90-degree angle. And if you can get your buttstock underneath your bicep to where you can have positive control over the firearm with your arm at a 90 degree, that's where you want to have it at. So if you're a smaller framed individual and for you that's in here, then run it there. But for me, my arm would be really tucked in a lot more than 90 degrees. Even if I came in one more click, this is where I always have it. So if I came in one more and I tried to maintain a 90 degree, it's just barely sitting on my biceps. So it's too close in to the receiver. So I want to go only as far out as I need to. And that's why I come in one click from fully extended. Along with that is your foregrip placement, your controls, etc., etc. I would say size your buttstock first, and then you're going to want to actually mount the buttstock to your shoulder and kind of just do a presentation, right? Do it with one hand, and then with your non-dominant hand, you're going to, wherever you naturally and comfortably grip your rail, that's where you're going to want to put all of your controls, your hand stops, foregrips, etc., etc. That's where you're going to want to put it. And if you're going to do a C-clamp grip, which I would recommend, you're going to want to not set up any of your tools to impede that C-clamp grip. So my thumb can wrap right around the back of my pressure pad and it doesn't impede my grip. I'm not going to accidentally discharge my white light as I present the gun, but I build the placement of everything around how the gun fits me. Now when it comes to slings and sizing your sling, this is something that's very subjective. So some people, as you can see the way that I have it, I mount my sling very close in to the receiver. Some people mount their slings all the way out on the outside, like all the way at the very end of their rail and to their buttstock. I've tried that a lot. I recently just changed it back to this because I was trying that again. I keep giving it another shot just to not really be a huge fan of it because I feel like it removes my ability to maneuver the firearm around. It kind of just, when I go to present, that's it. It's completely tight and I can't really move the gun around. If I wanted to go to a high port or high ready or whatever you'd want to call it, I can't really do this if I have the sling mounted all the way out on either end if I'm running it diagonally across my back. But if I'm running it around my neck just like it is here and I have it all the way out on either end, it just seems like there's a lot of slack. There's a lot of room for the sling to slide down my back as I'm presenting it. As where I like this, it just sits on my neck the whole time. It doesn't really move. This is how I've ran it for most of my career, and I just always come back to it. I really like having the rear sling mount underneath the buffer tube. I like that it allows me to switch to the other side if I needed to. It's completely personal preference. I've tried the other way, and I can't get into it, so this is why I run it this way, close in to the receiver. It's just because it feels better to me. I like the advantages of being able to maneuver my firearm more freely, and that's that. So if you like it some other way, then that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Personal preference prevails. And that's pretty much all there is to it in regards to like sizing your firearm to you. So when we talk about cost-effective, high-quality builds, getting into the AR-15 space, it is a very deep rabbit hole, and it's really cool because these rifles can do so many things. So I have this 11.5-inch Geisley upper that is a short-barreled rifle, but I also have a 16-inch 5.56 upper. That's the IWI upper receiver that came with this lower receiver. It's a 16-inch 5.56 long barrel upper that has an LPVO on it. It has a bipod on it. It also still has a hand stop on it. But then in addition to that, I have an 18-inch 6.5 Grendel upper. That's what I take hunting with me. They all run on this lower receiver. So the money that I'm saving on buying complete AR-15 rifles, I can reinvest into the other pieces and parts that are going to go on the rifles and going to go to those dedicated upper setups. All I have to do, because my 16-inch barrel has its own optic on it, all I have to do is remove the takedown pins, swap the uppers out. There are some things that I've bought two of. Everything that's on the lower receiver stays on the lower receiver, obviously. So since I have the sling mounted back here, but the front mount is mounted to the rail, I just bought another one of the 100 Concepts M-LOK mounts, and it's also in the exact same place on my 16-inch barrel, so that I could just transfer the sling right over and I wouldn't have to swap it out or anything. When I want to swap it out, all I have to do is take my sling off just of the front end, just of the upper receiver. But just so I can demonstrate this easier, I am going to remove it from the back. So all I have to do is take out the takedown pins and just keep the lower receiver here. I'll grab my long barrel upper and I'll just drop it in. And that's it. So this thing isn't completely done yet. However, there are some pieces that rather than buying two, I made it to where I can just transfer them from one upper to the other. So starting off, first, like I said, I bought a second muzzle device to run my suppressor on. I can just swap my suppressor over to this upper and I can use it on both. So the other thing with this Yankee Hill is it just threads on. It's a quick detach. And there we have it. So now I can run my long barrel suppressed, nice and simple. And then another really expensive part that I don't want to have to buy two of is my white light. So that's why I bought that Kinetic Development Group mount, so that I can just very easily detach it from one upper and clip it into another upper. And there you have it. The only thing that this thing is really missing is controls. So rather than buying an entirely new setup with a whole new white light just for this upper, all I have to buy is this Kinetic Development Group mount and another pressure pad to run here to plug in so that I can run the white light here. These lights are hundreds of dollars versus buying the mount and the pressure pad. You're still going to be over $100, but it's probably going to be somewhere between 120 and 150 versus still having to buy your controls that are going to be, I don't know what they are, like 70, 80 bucks, and an entirely new white light that's going to be $300-400 or whatever they are. Save money where you can. Reinvest that money into other pieces of your builds. And last but not least is the sling. Just dropping the sling back in. Like I said, my sling mount on the front end is in the exact same location. So I just drop it in there. And everything is the exact same. My foregrip placement or hand stop is the exact same as it is on the short barrel. The only difference is this has an LPVO, obviously, and this LPVO, the height over bore is much lower because it's not on any kind of a riser mount. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I can't just keep my head up like normal. I am going to have to drop my head down to get a good sight picture, and that's fine. But what's nice about this is that you only have to buy one lower receiver and you can run multiple uppers. And so all your controls stay the same. Your touch points all stay the same. When I get my pressure pad here, all of my controls will be the exact same from one weapon to the other. All the controls back here, my trigger squeeze is the same, safety feels the same. I still have my flared mag well, still the same buttstock, same exact hand stop placement, control placement's the same. Everything is the same except the capabilities of the firearm have changed. Rather than dropping hundreds of more dollars on all these different lower receivers, save that money, buy just one complete AR-15 to start and build it out, and then start acquiring different upper receivers, 6.5 Grindle, 300 Blackout, whatever. Save the money from the lower receivers and put it back towards an optic for the gun or whatever other accessories you want for it. That's how you make multiple AR builds very cost effectively. So that's how I've been doing it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell so that you can see all the new videos that we're coming out with. We are coming out with at least one, if not two videos. We are probably going to start releasing 2 videos a week. And make sure to let us know down in the comments how your AR setup is. If you have any questions about anything on any one of my builds, by all means ask away and I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. And yeah, that's all we got. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate your support. We'll see you in the next one.